I've been in calypso and in music for about close to 40 years now. Yeah. And I've always written, I'm a songwriter as well, not only calypso, but other genres as well. And my concern has always been dispossessed people and the whole question of justice and equal rights and justice. That's why I deal with them, that's about nearly all of my music, you know. Other than that, I am a journalist. I write and I edit these days more than write. You know, working on a couple of short stories and a book right now. And I'm a Gemini, if you check for that kind of thing. And Gemini is all about communication, right? And I'm a communicator. The platform don't make no difference. It could be music, it could be words, you know, anything. Once it's communication, that's my thing.
Okay. One of the main reasons that we brought you here this morning, we're here at beautiful Bronx Beach. Earlier this week, we would have heard some strange, I call them strange comments, coming from the clergy in Barbados. There are many concerns right now as marijuana legalization, decriminalization is in the air, not just globally, but here in the region as well. So we wanted to get your views as a Rastaman, as a Barbadian, as a member of ICAR. What are your views currently on the state of marijuana legalization, decriminalization, medicinal marijuana, the whole gamut of it? What are your views on it, and what can you tell us to pretty much educate us from your perspective on the issue?
Well, right now, Barbados finds itself, in a sense, almost unable to escape the whole issue of we don't call it marijuana, we call it cannabis. Because marijuana is a very culturally loaded word, right, which you use against the Mexicans to make it something other, something that was different and freaky, you know. But right now, Barbados is seeking and starting to engage the community in terms of what's happening with cannabis. I don't want to, what I can say is that we have started, when I say we, I mean the Rastafari Community and ICAR. We have engaged government on a couple of occasions already, and we expect this to continue, right? Because basically, we can't avoid the issue. As I said, the CARICOM Commission into Marijuana came back clearly without any kind of equivocation at all, legalized, right? So we've had steps in Jamaica even before that. We've had steps in St. Vincent, Antigua most gloriously, which is another thing I would like to speak about, more Antigua. And now we understand that early this year, St. Lucia should be coming on stream as well, right? The whole thing about it, my brethren, is this, right? There have been too many decades with misinformation, with lies, right, with cultural bias against cannabis. And this is not surprising to me because folk cultures all over the world have always used herbs or some other medicinal kind of plant, right? And mainstream society has always frowned upon it, at least, you know? So the present situation is not surprising. But one thing I want to let people to think about is this. If cannabis is illegal, no, it means that at some point it had to be legal. Because things don't naturally occur and be automatically illegal. They had to be legal at some point. Cannabis used to be planted in Barbados, right? There's a house I know very well in Hinesbury Road called Hempstead. Hempstead is the home of the herb. And that property has a drying house on it, right? All through St. Andrew, St. George, cannabis used to be planted before. So a lot of people, society in general, comes with this idea that ganja, cannabis is this new thing that can send people. It's been around for thousands of years, right? And for people that say that more research needs to be done, it's ridiculous. Research has been done over and over and over again. This is a plant that, as I said, dates back thousands of years. It is no secret to people. People know its medicinal properties. But now you're getting a set of what they call confusion, with people introducing this concept of medical marijuana. Medical marijuana is like wet water, right? It is in and of itself medicinal, right? So you can have the medicinal marijuana and non-medicinal marijuana, right? Just like you can have wet water and non-wet water. It's one and the same thing, you know? So very insidiously, you know, people are trying to introduce a different thing about cannabis again. They're saying now that they want to use it now without the THC. They want to take out the THC and use these CBD and make the capsules and pills and so. Rasta not about that, right? But Rastafari is saying clearly without any equivocation that it is time, because what the laws have done is to not criminalize the plant, it's to criminalize the people that use it. We are saying that it is time to stop criminalizing people for a natural plant. It's as simple as that. It means there's something basically very illogical, right, and very weird about a situation where you can be at home at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and somebody can come and bust on your door for you because you're using a plant. I mean, if you stop and think of it right, in its rawest form, which is that, it makes no sense. You know, it doesn't make any sense at all. You know, and another concerning aspect for ICAR is the fact that all of these social scientists agree that Barbados is an aging society, right? And we're locking up all our young men. 10, 15 years down the road, where will our young men be? Right? What will happen to Barbados when all the aging society ages even more? The young ones that should be, especially the young men that should be carrying the fight forward and carrying the fire forward, they got them locked up. And who in lockup got criminal records. So that means that the future got a whole blight on it. They can't travel, they can't go certain places, they can't get jobs. So what this legislation really doing is criminalizing too many Barbadians. It shouldn't be criminalizing any of them at all.
What does the future hold? What do you see coming out of the framework, out of the many discussions that we're having? What are you seeing happening over the next, let's say, 5 years to be realistic? When it comes to young people, Rasta men, Rasta women, some of the people who've been persecuted for many years for using marijuana. You would be able to tell me, I suppose, numerous stories from 30, 40 years ago, people who would have really brought this trend to Barbados in terms of early Rastafari movement. If you don't mind, would you take me back to some of those times? Because it's not fair for us to come now and just, I suppose, the gate is open and we forget about those ones who would have set the path and really, I would say, open the door for us, and not just in terms of cannabis, in terms of vegan cuisine. There's a whole range of things that you guys would have been tormented for, really, over a number of years. Speak to me about that. Bring me forward.
Yeah, well, Rasta really kind of officially surfaced. They had other men in Barbados that had gone to Jamaica, right? I had said that Rastafari for themselves. But as far as being more widespread, I would say probably 1975, 76, when I Rastafari and some brethren called the Sons of Thunder, including Ras Adonijah and Elder from Jamaica, came to Barbados, right? And brought the reasoning to Barbados. So from that time, it really took hold, you know? But as they say, man, there have been so many cases of oppression, brutality, even death, right? For Rastafari through all the years, right? So it is good and pleasant now to see that at last some aspects of society, at least it seems, are coming face to face with the fact that basically you can't get away from the Rasta man and the Rasta woman. We ain't going nowhere, right? We are people's sons and daughters, right? We are people's mothers, right? We have families. We are part of this thing called Barbados, you know? And people have tried over the years just to ostracize the Rasta man and the Rasta woman, the different kind of people. Now you got Rasta people that teaching, that is lawyers, that is doctors, understand? Doing everything. So you can't really get away from Rastafari. So this is Rasta thing, no, right? And now we're mentioning that the Rasta community in Barbados is overjoyed. I can't put it any stronger than that. At the responses in Antigua from that country's Prime Minister Gaston Brown, right? Even before even Jamaica, where Rasta first showed itself, he has come forward and apologized to Rastafari for all these decades of inhumanity, right, and inhumane treatment, which is a very important thing, right? And he is one of the people in the Caribbean in the forefront of legalizing the herb, you know? And Barbados can't get away from it, right? It can't get away from it. I remember Peter Wickham recently, or a couple of years ago, did a survey, and he found that 52% of the people whom we interviewed were in favor of changes, right? You cannot continue to still lock up people and criminalize people for the rest of their life for a natural plant. And the irony of it is that this same plant, the ones who were speaking out loudest against it, even they now see what the Rastaman been saying for years, that it is for the healing of the nations. It is meant for people's good.
Okay, so this is a good opportunity for us then to correct some of the misinformation that people have been holding about cannabis for all these years. So we're talking about some people in Barbados, let's say over the age of 40, 45, 50, 60, 65, who may be concerned. They may even be, I suppose, have illnesses that cannabis may be of some assistance to them, and due to fear, they refuse to get involved or engage in the process for the simple fact that it's illegal. So what do you say to some of these people who may be caught between a rock and a hard place, guided by the misinformation, still not sure? They see other people globally benefiting from it, kids who have seizures, people who have cancer and so on. Speak to some of those people for me who may not be wholeheartedly against cannabis, but like I said, misguided and need to hear the other side of the coin. What do you say to some of those people this morning?
What I would say to them is that if they know of the good that cannabis can do, but they find themselves caught between a rock and a hard place in terms of its illegality, I would say to them, speak to your member of parliament. Put pressure on your member of parliament. Let your member of parliament know that this is something that I know can help me, but the way you all got things now, I can't do it, or you don't want to do it, right? Because we're reaching that stage. It has to come to that. I can see, you asked me a little while ago, where can I see the situation, where cannabis a few years on. I can see within a few years, people, the populace being free to plant a certain number of plants. I can see Barbados having a full cannabis industry, including hemp, right? And they can see this scourge, this wicked and this mischievous law that injures people, right? I can see that being removed from the books. I can see that sooner rather than later. It's inevitable.
Now, one of the concerns that some of the people have been having regionally is concerns where they figure that it would just become another sugar industry where we have major players, people who own land, etc., taking full advantage and making money from the product. What is your position in terms of all the plants that have been planted all these years in St. John, St. Andrew, St. George, all over Barbados? Some have been held for cultivating, as you know. Some probably are still in jail as we speak. What's going to happen to these people who have been held for cannabis on cannabis charges over the years, and then we say, okay, cannabis is legal now? What happens to those people and the records of those people?
But for one thing, ICAR is making representation that these records be expunged, right? That these records be wiped clean, right? We're also making representation right now for a moratorium on arrests, because it doesn't seem logical to us that we should be saying on the one hand, hey, this is a plant that can do wonderful things for you, and on the other hand, but hey, we can still lock you up for it. There's no logic to that, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as ICAR is concerned. Yeah. But again, we have been engaging, right? We have had the opportunity on a couple of occasions to sit down with members of the current government and have some discussions as to the reality of the situation, as to what we would like to see happening.
And you think that's an important step, to at least open dialogue?
Definitely, because Rastafari been trained for years to have audience with government at the very highest level. And for the last 10 years for certain, the administration has been actively avoiding the issue and actively not engaging Rastafari. The Attorney General found time to engage the LGBT community. He couldn't find any time to engage the Rastafari community. I guess that goes to show what he considers more important. You know, the point is that nobody should be left out. You know, if people are looking for change, it's supposed to engage everybody. We had a big forum at LESC that would have been now 2017, where all of Barbados came out. Right? That was the CARICOM Commission's hearing in Barbados. People in wheelchairs came out. People suffering from lupus, right? People suffering that had strokes and so, who were giving testimony to the fact that cannabis had cured them. And the Attorney General left, spoke for 10 minutes and get up and left, and would not face people. You know, we welcome the fact that this administration so far has sought to engage the Rastafari community. Because you can't leave, before the Chinese come in and start to talk, before the Americans and the Canadians, Rastafari has to be involved. And the point the question you asked us now in terms of the former plantation, we have made it very clear. We went through the plantation thing once already. We ain't going through it again, you know? There is no way that Rasta going to sit and be allowed to be the ones that fork the fields and pull up the weeds in any big ganja enterprise run by some Chinese or Canadian. It ain't working so. That's slavery, we went through that again already. We ain't doing that again. Right? So we are calling for Rastafari to be involved at every level because Rasta is the cannabis experts, right? And it's the real experts in this thing. We be in this thing, we get persecuted for it, we get down pressed for it, we get killed for it. If you're dealing with it, you have to deal with the Rastafari community.
Okay, so independently now, outside of government structure, government support, government dialogue, and so on, you don't have to reveal obviously internal plans. But can you speak to what ICAR is doing or what the Rastafari movement would be doing independently to secure itself in the event that, well, not in the event, because as you say, it's inevitable that when that time comes, there's a structure across the board for you guys to benefit wholeheartedly from the sale of these cannabis products?
What I are doing, as they say, without disclosing too much, is putting structures in place, right? Putting structures in place because there'll be things that will need to have to be done, like trademarking and that kind of thing, and branding and that kind of thing. So I'm putting things in place so that when the time comes, we will not be caught short. You know, we will be right there and ready. And we have examples from through the region, right? From Jamaica and more so, yeah, St. Vincent as well.
So it's clear to me, you said Rastas are the marijuana expert. I want you to speak specifically now to the quality of cannabis that's grown in Barbados, because obviously, as you would know, on the market globally, there's a lot of emphasis placed on strain, on quality, and so on. What are your views? What do you think about the local farming community here in Barbados, realistically?
I mean, it always amuses me to hear people who don't know anything about it saying that Barbados can't have any place in the cannabis industry because Barbados does not grow a good strain of cannabis, which is really far from the truth, right? My understanding is that any of these strains with the fancy names that you can find that are prevalent in North America, you can find here in Barbados, right? My understanding is that they're being grown in Barbados, and obviously the greater effect because we have the climate for it. We don't have to put it in artificial sunlight, right, through lights and so. We have all the wind, we have the moisture, we have the humidity, we have the sun, we have the rain, right? We have everything, right? So that is not an issue in terms of the quality of cannabis that can be produced in Barbados. That is not an issue at all.
Another part of the misconception that I want you to address, and this is mainly because you're a cultural practitioner, you understand the influence of music. There's some people, again, who tend to tie the cannabis industry and the use of cannabis and so on to a rise in the violence that we're seeing in Barbados and so on. They tie it to the dancehall culture, they tie it to reggae, they tie it to the music and so on, and they try to put a negative spin on it. What are your views in terms of how they all combine?
That's an absolute misconception. What you should do is look at the songs in the rum industry. Look at the rum songs. Because the rum songs now got a whole little niche, there's a whole little mini industry there, right? Cannabis does not encourage or promote violence not in any way, right? When some person has been using cannabis, the person will be relaxed and cool. He ain't going to start no trouble nor start no fight. One interesting thing though is that I am wondering now that we have gone so far already according to the Prime Minister, as to institute medical cannabis. What is going to be the position of the radio in terms of playing songs that refer to cannabis, right? Because you have a million songs on the radio encouraging people to drink rum, right? But when it comes to songs about cannabis, you have to bleep out the word. I wonder if we reach a point. I think we have reached the point where you need to stop that. You know, let people know what you're talking about, because it's not hide up anything anymore. It's out in the open.
I want you to expand a bit more for me, Ado, because what you're talking about, you're going into what many Barbadians would call very, very tricky ground when you start to talk about alcohol and Mount Gay rum and ASA Field and so on. This is really branded as the home of alcohol. Rum, specifically, that's a big part of the Barbadian culture. So talk to me, how do you really feel about alcohol consumption and stuff like that in Barbados specifically?
Now, to me, that is one of the biggest hypocrisies that we have here in Barbados, right? Especially as far as the church is concerned, right? Because, look, even the people who are anti-cannabis will be forced to admit, well, perhaps we don't know enough about it. But there is no questioning the fact that we know all we need to know about alcohol. We know that alcohol destroys families. We know it's responsible for a lot of accidents and road deaths. We know it's responsible for a lot of domestic abuse. We know it causes a lot of mental problems. We know it kills people physically, right? Through its physical effects, right? But yet, we embrace it. We celebrate it. We give people knighthoods for producing it, right? But a natural plant whose medical benefits have been established over thousands of years, we fight against that. I don't see how some person who calls themselves a man or a woman of God, right, can fight against a plant made by God, but embrace a product made by another plant that was made by God, but whose effects are so devastating, right? So we have to face that reality. And the thing about it is that, especially you see with young people, you can't fool young people, you know. And young people are very aware of this fact. When they tell you, well, you can't use cannabis because they can do this and that to you, young people will tell you straight, so what about alcohol? Everybody in the village know that they wake up one morning and see men at 6 o'clock by a rum shop waiting for it to open. You don't see that by nobody that is sell cannabis. You don't see nobody waiting till the herb man come to open to get herb, right? So these are realities that we have to face and hypocrisies that we have to expose. Because it just isn't right, it isn't fair. And these church people never get up and complain. My thing is this: if you can say cannabis is all this bad, and as a church person you have to fight against it to protect who you, why I don't hear you getting up and fighting against the sale of alcohol? You know what you're doing. Why don't you get up and fight against it? But no, it is all right because enough of are using it too. Right? Because we have alcohol, I can say this plainly, they have alcohol abuse among the clergy. Right? So they are in no moral position. As a matter of fact, when it comes to morals, I feel the church need to keep quiet, period. Because especially the Catholic Church. I would like to hear from the church an apology for its role in slavery. That is what you want to hear from the church. What you want to hear from the Catholic Church is an apology for the sexual molestation of young boys that is institutionalized in the church. No. I want to hear the evangelicals getting up and talking about preaching against the tradition that they have, where they have ministers that buy Lamborghinis for the wives that cost $200,000 US and buying personal jets for themselves. Right? That is what you want to hear the church on. Left out the cannabis. Let I and I deal with that. Right? We the experts about that. When I talk about that, that's what we want to know about.
All right, straight talk. You mentioned something just now, which is of utmost importance to us here. Young people. You would know, again, as a cultural practitioner, also as a teacher, somebody who's spent X amount of time surrounding yourself with young people. Speak to young people for me, Adonijah. How do you see things in Barbados right now? From my perspective, I see more good than bad. As you would know, the negative tends to be more sensational and to be highlighted more. But we would all be aware of young people in Barbados who are doing things, going into entrepreneurship, pursuing their own careers and so on. What do you say to them as an elder, as a person who's been through it? What do you say to young people right now in Barbados?
Well, I am really heartened by some of the things that I see some young people doing, you know. As you said, there are a lot of young people who are doing very, very positive things and very quietly, you know. A lot of them are into entrepreneurship, carving the niche for themselves, which is beautiful. Right? Because our education system has always taught us to qualify yourself and go and work for somebody, right? It hasn't really encouraged us that much over the years to look to carve your own niche, you know? So I love that, right? But again, is the educational system, right? I am concerned with the fact that the educational system consistently puts out a number of people who are almost unemployable, right? And to me, that is not an accident. To me, the education system we have down here has always been designed to create some kind of cannon fodder, right? Cheap, unskilled labor, right? You always have to have that market, right? That pool there to satisfy that market. But I would like to see more being done to develop more of the skills and the talents that our youngsters have, because everybody has a talent, right? And when you have a whole set of people in a school which is basically a school of underachievers academically, all you can do is produce a set of people that are hostile towards the system. They feel the system wasn't designed for them. They don't see themselves, any part for themselves in the system. So they go outside the system and try to lick it down, right? I think that we have to try to harness them people from earlier, right? Find out what it is that they would like to do and provide them with the opportunities to do these things, right? I mean, if you get some person like getting high Harrison College or Queen's College mark in 11 plus, right? And you give them the same syllabus and the same course to follow as a fella that get 10 or 15. What's the sense in that?
Not applicable.
Right? All that can happen is a fella that get 10 or 15 going feel, but listen, he really can't fit in. And when he's struggling to keep up, he can feel worse and worse about himself. And the worse he feels about himself, the more he can retreat from the society and see it as the enemy, right? Because it is not accommodating him, it isn't speaking to him at all, right? We have to find ways to develop our children, right? And to me, agriculture, not agriculture as it used to be, but agriculture as it is now, right, should play a large part as far as that's concerned. And not only that, but the cannabis industry, right? Let some of these people get involved in the cannabis industry, making soaps, making oils, understand? Because we, again, Rastafari will not be content and will not sit down and accept being just the laborers in this. We have to be involved at all levels, right? In terms of planning what to do, in terms of executing these things, in terms of looking for the niche markets that we can create. There are possibilities, man.
Okay. Finally, I want you to break down ICAR for my listeners, for my viewers, those people who may not know what the council represents, and just briefly tell us what we can expect from ICAR going forward in terms of putting out education and more awareness on not just cannabis, but a whole wide array of issues.
Okay. Well, ICAR stands for the Ichiruga name Council for the Advancement of Rastafari. It's been established since the year 2000. It's an NGO with registration as high as the United Nations. We have been involved in, as a part of civil society, we have been involved in government, well, different administrations for a number of years and a number of issues, right? It is just that at this time, we are re-energized, I would say. The organization is re-energized because a lot of some of the things that we have been calling for, especially in the field of cannabis, we see happening, right? So we see ourselves as being a major part of any kind of cannabis industry going forward. But not only that, there are things that ICAR wants to establish, right? We have concerns as far as education is concerned. We want to be able to, we would love to be able to establish an educational institution, right? To correct some of the misinformation and the wrong ideas that are being propagated in mainstream. But the one thing I think I can say is that as a part of its newfound energy, if you like, the center of that, I think, is the fact that we have reorganized to the point where, rather than having the traditional structure with a president and a this and that, we are now organizing into committees, 7 committees. So everybody's involved. This person will have people that belong to that committee, and they all link at the end of the day, right? So no person in the organization should be in a position to say, well, I don't know what's going on, or I'm not a part of it, because everybody will indicate what area he or she wants to fit in, and we move from there. We see really good things happening, and the year started very positively.
your body.